To say that I'm not going full send doesn't mean I'm not working hard.
Yes.
I'm actually still working very hard. It's intentional. It's deliberate. It's uh it's working in the absence of rest.
All right, guys, welcome back to this Hammer CrossFit podcast. It's episode number 2. All right. I'm Coach Jeff, and I'm here with Coach James. All right, Coach James, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing great. And today we're going to be talking about what is CrossFit, right? And along those lines, it's going to be tied in with that also, like, what is fitness, going back to the roots of CrossFit, right? Back in 2002, what made CrossFit such a big movement, right? So, James, all right, what is CrossFit? What is the definition of CrossFit?
Uh, well, by definition, CrossFit is constantly varied functional exercises executed at high intensity.
Awesome.
But we can dissect that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Constantly varied is that the workouts themselves are always changing. Um, Functional movements, meaning we're able to they're basically things that bodies do. We push, we pull, we hinge, we squat, and we find a lot of different ways that we can do that. A lot of different variety there, and then executed at high intensity, which relates to power output, right? How hard, how fast can we do these things?
Yeah, and I think that's really important to talk about. That again, the constant vary, and again, in level one, we talked about that as well. That it's not just random, right? It's not just random programming. It's not just random movements. Here, this again is constant vary. It could be going from also different implements, right? From a dumbbell to a barbell to kettlebell, all right? Even the same movement pattern per se. High intensity. It's also kind of allows us to think about, right, time under tension, and I think that's something we talked about yesterday on some of the classes, right? We want to have create some time of retention as well, because that also increases the movement. And then tied into that, and we wanted to really kind of dive into this a little more, and there's definitions through the session today. What is fitness?
So CrossFit is the first methodology of training that I'm aware of that actually try to define fitness, right? And they define it as work capacity. We kind of talked about that already across broad time and modal domains. So my ability to do work no matter how long or short the task is, and no matter what the task is. So it could be weight training, it could be gymnastics, it could be traditional cardio, or any sort of combination of the three of those things. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 25 minutes within the spectrum of your general class. Work capacity is power output. So that's like my ability to do work in this time that I'm allotted. Sometimes the workout is written, 21:59 for these movements, and so the work is fixed, and I'm trying to do it as fast as possible. Sometimes it's 15-minute AMRAP of these exercises, and I'm trying to get as many rounds of reps as possible. But in both of those goals, I'm trying to do as much work as I possibly can, and to have the highest power output in that time domain as I can. And I think what happens sometimes is when people choose an exercise that's too complex and it forces them to break up into multiple sets, or if it's too heavy and forces them to rest. One of the things that I commonly say is, when your hands on your knees, your power output is zero. And so what I've been trying to do lately myself as kind of a little like project is approach the workout in such a way that I'm going to move as slowly as I possibly can without stopping. I'm going to try to do big sets at a load that I can do big sets at. So regardless of what the RX, the prescription says, I'm going to choose a weight that feels appropriate to me. If it's 50 reps, I don't want that to take more than 3 to 4 sets. And so I need to choose something that's well below my best effort. But that means that I'm going to finish quicker, which means that my power output is higher, right? Power output comes down to three things. And I love this from the early days of CrossFit. It's force times distance over time, right? How heavy is the object? How far does it travel? And how long does it take to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so if I go a little bit heavier, but it takes longer to get there, then my power output goes down. Right. If I go heavy, but my range of motion is shortened because I don't feel comfortable going through full depth, then my power output is less. And all of those things kind of contribute to, like, when I'm conditioning, when I'm doing metabolic conditioning, I'm using weight training as a tool for my aerobic system, for my muscular endurance. And if I'm doing singles, I'm not developing either of those things.
Yeah, and I think that's something we have to realize that in a certain way, kind of like some of the barbell cycling or dumbbell work or even gymnastics in CrossFit, we try to make them almost aerobic, right? Like when you look at the high level athletes like Fronting, Fraser, Tia, all those guys, like they're able to do high gymnastic skills aerobically. You just kind of moving right there. Now don't have to make those breaks, and I think it's really cool like what you've been doing because you did it. Now you mentioned the other day that you almost been working on this kind of project on yourself for about a year, right? That you kind of been looking at like different ways to kind of train to like make your body healthy, all right? Make you feel good. And right now, I saw you recently doing two more recent experiments of that. Was a workout that was yesterday in the gym. From we're recording, so today's Tuesday. We're recording here on Tuesday. On Monday, and through the workout, I got a chance to see you, and you were moving like quote unquote slow, right? Your pace looked similar throughout, and yet you finished the workout essentially first in the class, right? But you always kept moving at the same pace. Another example of that was your burpees that you were doing the other day, right? And you want to see the burpees, you can follow Coach James on Instagram. And he was doing his burpees at a steady pace, right? And in 10 minutes, you did like 120 burpees,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was one
right?
rep every 5 seconds for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then so imagine that, right? It's that constant work every 5 seconds. I go back up, I go back down, and again, you almost make it cyclical, right? One up and the next, right after the next. So I think it's really cool, and it's something that we can consider when we think about again my work capacity, my time domain, and then we have the CrossFit Open. We talked about it last week, and I myself I have done it this time when I choose to do a scale workout versus doing an RX workout. So like the workout from 2019, I believe, the one that had or 2018 that had a bunch of overhead squats and bar muscle ups and chest to bars, and I knew it wasn't gonna get that far. It had like 600 double unders, right? I knew for a fact that I wasn't gonna get that far, so I actually chose to do the scale, and I challenged myself to go. I want to be the fastest scale, right, in my heat or whatever that was, right? And that was difficult, like going single unders right into empty bar overhead squats, single unders, like keeping chest to bar pull ups, like really quick. That was a fast, horrible workout for a skull option. And yes, I got a kick-ass workout out of that. And I think that's something that we forget and almost like give permission to ourselves do not go as heavy all the time. I don't know if that's you would agree with that.
I 100% agree with that.
Like,
Here's an idea that I've talked about before is, CrossFit. One of the things I love about CrossFit is that there's an RX, right? RX means prescription. There's a prescribed standard to the workout. We're going to do these exercises to these standards at these loads, or these ranges of motion. And what that allows you to do is take a look at, do this workout, perform this workout as a test, right? Kind of like as an experiment. And then
mhm,
I can do my training after that experiment, all kinds of stuff, and then I can retest. We talked a little bit about this last week, I think, and I can
mhm,
see if the training that I've been doing is improving my fitness by my ability to do more reps in a given time, or my ability to finish a workout faster, or to lift a heavier load. And that objectivity is the beauty of CrossFit, right? That's the thing that drew me to it in the beginning, is that everything has standards. That every push up starts with your chest or your arms fully extended, and your chest makes contact with the ground, and then your arms reach full extension again. Every squat, hip crease below the knee. Every pull up, chin over the bar, arms reach full extension at the bottom. And so when you start looking at these workouts as this series of skills that you're developing, and then we're starting to put them together in various ways, then you can look at it as like there's these. It's I'm practicing this skill development. I'm mastering these movements, and I can look at going to the gym similarly to the way I would say I'm going to practice, for a sport or for playing guitar or something like that, right? Where I don't need to bust my ass like it's game day every single day. In fact, that's probably not the best option for me. There's no sport in the that I'm aware of that has competition all year round, right? We like athletes need time off, not off like resting, sitting on the couch, but time to practice, time to do other things. Even professional football players still have days where they go and you know they just wear shoulder pads, right, and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of move through the movements. And I think that that's something that CrossFitters could learn a whole lot from. I scaled today's workout. I used 35-pound dumbbells instead of 50s. I didn't do rope climbs because I'm a little bit beat up. It was my second workout of the day, and my goal when I walk into class is to get the best workout possible for me, right? And so sometimes that doesn't look like clicking the RX button. Sometimes that looks like just trying to steadily move through. And I still, like you said, just like you said for the open workout, I get great workouts when I scale. I can really focus on moving well. I can focus on my breath. I can focus on the environment around me, and I can leave feeling better than when I came in. Oftentimes, when I do the workout as it's written on the whiteboard, on days that I'm not really feeling it, I kind of feel like crap afterwards, and not in a good way. I
Mm-hmm.
feel beat up, and that makes me less inclined to want to come back tomorrow. And so, my goal as a CrossFitter is to look at this as the health and longevity program that it is for the 99% of us, and say, I'm going to train doing this style of workouts until I'm in my 70s, right? For me, that's 40 years. And if I'm training 4 or 5 days a week, that's like 10,000 workouts, right? And
Wow.
so,
Yeah.
you know, by Wednesday, nobody's going to remember that I had the fastest time in the noon class on Monday, right? And so I've tried to take a little bit of personal responsibility there, and um, yeah, treat myself like I would treat a client and say like, hey, I'm walking into this, I'm kind of stressed. I only have 60 minutes. I want to leave here feeling good, and I also want to train tomorrow. And so I'm going to do the workout that makes the most sense for me based on the template that's up on the board.
Wow. I mean, James, so many topics there. Like so much good stuff
Sorry.
there. Oh no, that was awesome, man. Because I mean, this stuff that we're gonna talk about in the future episodes, right? But like you're talking about like range of motion, right? The benefits of range of motion. You talked about like benchmarks and again like the testing protocols from that's what makes it measurable, right? That's what makes CrossFit really good. Um, practice about practice and like also how to deal with like the stress on your own training. But something that really caught my attention, and I'm glad you brought it up, is that idea of practice and training versus testing. And I think that's really cool because a couple of years I used to program for a different gym, and that was some of the mindsets that we had. It was a mindset for the day, and we had a testing day or a testing day was like the competition mindset. So that would be like we're testing a benchmark with you and friend today, right? And that's where I get to see, based on my comparable information, same movement, same standards from the previous time, have I improved over this time, right? In the last 3 months, 6 months, or whatever time I have tested friend. And then there were days that I have like a mindset of practice. What does that mean? That means getting better at the ability to maybe move better on the burpees. How's my footwork on a burpee? Do I take too much steps going over the bar? Do I practice my same footwork every time? All right. And then there's kind of like this kind of middle ground with training, right? And if I were to put a percentage to that, I think of training between like that 70 to 85%, when it could be challenging, but you're still moving through. And you mentioned guitar, so like playing piano, all right? Skill, like you're mastering the fingering of your scales. Now training would be this idea. Or now you're practicing, or you're playing the piano, you're doing a piece, but if you stumble, it's okay. You go back, fix it, you correct. And then competition day, again in a piano setting or in a music setting, will be the performance. You're from everyone, and now you get to show what you practice and what you train for on that day.
I think there's an important distinction to make there is that to say that I'm not going full send doesn't mean I'm not working hard.
Yes.
I'm actually still working very hard. It's just it's intentional. It's deliberate. It's it's working in the absence of rest. It's trying to work at a pace where I can understand myself to where I don't put my hands on my knees while the clock is still running. Um, and it's we've learned so much. Like that movie Every Second Counts was from the 2008 CrossFit Games,
Mm-hmm.
and that was 14 years ago. And so there are a lot of people outside of the CrossFit space who still look into it and they still see that CrossFit, ripped hands, Pukey the Clown, all that. I'm gonna call it like amateur nonsense that we used to
Mm-hmm.
be a part of. Um, but we've had plenty of experience. I mean, we've had millions of people now doing CrossFit now for a decade. I just registered for my 11th CrossFit Open in the last week, and we've gotten a hell of a lot smarter. And
Yeah.
this is where I love looking back at. I reference track and field all the time because that's the world that I came from, right?
Oh, okay.
And when we see when we see a 10-minute workout, a 10 or 12-minute workout, I can relate that to a 2 mile pace. When we have 5 rounds of XYZ, like that's interval training, right? And there's never a session on the track where we say, I want you to run a mile, but I want you to sprint the first lap and I want you to crawl across the finish line. Like that sounds absurd. If,
Hmm.
if your goal is to get the fastest time possible, right? That is sure as hell not the way to do it. And I think we could learn a whole lot from other sports in that
Yeah, yeah.
sense. That I want to come out at a reasonably hot pace, right? But something that's still like maintainable. I'm going to run like laps 2 and 3 a little bit slower, and then I want to finish with a solid kick. And that's the approach that I take into a call it a 4 round workout. If I'm thinking 4 laps around the track, um, there, like I was saying earlier, a football season, a professional football season, is 4 to 5 months long,
Yeah.
right? The CrossFit Games season, from the Open to the Games, is 4 to 5 months long, right? And both of those sports have a long off season where you're training, but you're not competing, right? And there's a short sightedness of fitness, and I don't think it's members' fault necessarily. I think it's actually like a larger fitness industry fault
Yeah.
that everything's all 6 week challenges and get slim in 90 days or whatever transformation challenges. Especially we're in the first quarter of the new year, and so there's a ton of that going on right now. And people just have this mentality of like, oh, I'm going to do this thing until I reach my goal, and then I'm going to go back to whatever bullshit I was doing previously. And unfortunately, that what that does is it creates this sort of like yo-yo. Like I was fit, and then I got hurt, and then I worked to get fit again, and then life happened, and I got lazy, and then I worked to get fit again, and like and you end up, man, putting up so much energy and not really getting anywhere. I mean, not anywhere, but never really actualizing the goal that you set for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of my favorite lines from Ben Bergeron, where he talks about goal setting, is a shallow trajectory to a distant horizon. Right? I want to be a little bit better than I was yesterday, and then a little bit better tomorrow, and a little bit better tomorrow. And if I do that for 6 months, I'm going to be so much further than if I just punched it every day for a week and then, and then had to rest, had to not go to the gym for a week because I was so messed up from it.
Yeah.
And if I can have the discipline to do that for a year or 5 years or 10 years, like just imagine. I'm over a decade into CrossFit now, and I feel healthier than I did through most of my 20s,
It's
and
awesome.
that's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I just went on a
And I
rant
think
again.
that no, that's awesome, man. No, I mean this is valuable stuff because now I think of the book, for example, Atomic Habits. I know you have read it, but in the book, right, talks about the law of marginal gains, 1% every day, 1% better every day. And there's a graph, right? You have your y-axis and your x-axis, and it just like you see the graph how like 1% every day just exponentially starts slow, and then it takes off. It just makes it an amazing growth. And then there's something, the opposite happens too. You get 1% worse every day. But in order to achieve these big goals that we want, like we don't have to be doing a lot of work at first. It's again 1% every day, and we can focus on that. I think it's gonna be really helpful in a lot of our fitness. You also like really this talk about right now of at the beginning of when you start saying that you approach the workout and you're trying not to, again, you work hard but you're not sending it. Is that a skill or is that more of a mindset? Like you trying to work hard but not send it, and like is that a skill or a mindset that you're approaching with the workout?
I'm not sure that I know how to make the distinction. I think it starts with a mindset that this is a skill, that pacing is a
Mm,
skill, that movement quality is a skill, that strength and metabolic conditioning is a skill. I think it starts with that, like that mindset, and that, like, if you agree that these are skills, then you agree that skills require practice in order to be good at them, and that you agree that there needs to be time where I'm practicing, and that I'm going to have the deliberate, like, I'm not going to go to red line today because that's going to make my skill, my practice fall apart.
got it.
Yeah,
And then something that you often say in is you say that we don't have members, that we have athletes, and I think that goes with that mindset that it's there's some personal responsibility to that, right? There's the approach, because yes, we are doing some of the movement, some of the stuff we're doing so that we can have the longevity. We can approach it with that kind of athlete mindset. So can you elaborate a little more on that, like what you like to call us more athletes rather than members?
sure. Well, you and I both come from the personal training world,
Yeah.
right? Where I am the trainer and I have my client. And with my client, this is a luxury service where I'm probably taking their weights off and putting their weights on for them. They may or may not be counting. I'm probably counting their reps for them. I'm cleaning the machines after them that they're sitting on, and it's a very, like, and you're holding their hand through the entire process, right? CrossFit is a little different than that, right? It's a little bit more, like you said, there's some personal responsibility there. And I think we intentionally use the term coach and athlete because it's a coach's job to facilitate the workout, but it's the athlete's responsibility to kind of take what they need and to do the work in a sense. And I think that that's a much better, like, I had the experience. I'm not actually sure if you had the experience of working both at the same time,
Yeah, I did
but I,
actually.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
where I would go from the $1 million facility at Lifetime where I'd have my clients that I held their hands, and then I would spend the evenings at the CrossFit gym, and I would watch the same type of individual, meaning like the same, like, age, gender, ability level, whatever, um, and I would just see the CrossFitters get so much better, so much quicker, right? And they're paying, a tenth of the price of the personal training clients, and you realize that it comes down, like you were saying, it all comes down to mindset. The mindset of, I am choosing to do the work, right, rather than paying somebody else to do it for me, or just, like, thinking that it's going to get done on its own. And I think that athlete mentality can translate into other areas of life, right? When you start to, hopefully we'll talk about this in another day, but when you can start to reassociate your effort to a positive outcome, right, that helps you to build some momentum. And I can say, like, oh, well, my effort matters, right? It produces this thing in the gym. And so now I'm going to put more effort into my relationships. I'm going to put more effort into my job. I'm going to put more effort into my, like, I don't know, renovating my home or whatever. And you start to see the benefits of CrossFit bleed out into other areas of your life. That's why I use the word athlete. And it goes back to what we were kind of referencing earlier, is those 10 general physical skills, right? The episode here is, what is CrossFit? And the type of fitness that we're creating in CrossFit is general physical preparedness, right? So that's my ability to handle whatever life throws at me. That's one of the reasons why the workouts are constantly varied. That's one of the reasons why I don't always know what I'm getting myself into. Is because as a GPP, general physical preparedness program, I don't know what life is going to throw at me, and so we kind of take that into the workout setting as well. And one of the things I also love about what CrossFit did early on was, they're on the walls of the gyms, right? There are 10 general physical skills of cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, accuracy, agility, balance, right? Those are all things that everybody needs. Like you were saying earlier, both our grandmothers and Olympic world class athletes, right? And so if we look at all of our members as athletes and we're trying to put them, on each of those 10 spectrums, right? We want to progress them from marginal to good to great, right? We're
Mm.
not trying to get them to be world class necessarily in any single one of those things, because oftentimes what that means is that you have to sacrifice elsewhere, right? I mean, just as an example, Eddie Hall deadlifted 1,100 pounds, but I guarantee he can't run a mile without stopping. Whereas Iliad Kipchoge ran a marathon in 2 hours, but he probably can't do a 24-inch box jump, right? And so those are those are interesting, right? That we're not going to make somebody the best of the best of the best in any particular skill, but we're going to bring up their average in all 10 of those skills,
It's
and that's
actually
the type of athlete that we're creating.
Well, I mean, that's cool to you brought it there because again, in the regular strength and conditioning world, we had those different spectrums, right? The marathon runner and the lifter, all right. And I think that it was Dave Castro who challenged in the early days of CrossFit to like, I want to see someone who can run a 5 minute mile and do I think it was a 500 pound back squat on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who recently did it. One of the CrossFit athletes. I'll look it up and I put the link on if I need to on the video, but he mixed. He got to the chance to do those two. He did 5 minute mile, and then he back squatted 500 pounds in the same day. And according to strength conditioning books out there, that shouldn't be the case. And we're allowing to create. We allowing to create athletes again that become really good at these 10 different domains. And and with that, and hopefully we can dive into it not in a different episode. It's again how we develop the skills, and now we get into skill development. All right, like when I started doing CrossFit, I didn't know what I didn't know, and then I found this thing CrossFit that had double unders, and I wanted to get double unders. All right, and then it's like, oh man, I suck at double unders, so I had to spend a little time and practice mindset and training mindset, or like consciously competent setting, so I can be like I can go into the movement under fatigue. And again, I think that's a whole different skill, a skill acquisition that we can dive into later. But it's really cool to see again the idea of how you as a CrossFit owner you see your members or your athletes like you give them that you give them that respect like you guys have the chance to be more right and a little better every day by being an athlete and treating yourself like that. I think that's really cool because I had the chance to work at multiple CrossFit gyms and it's like oh the members right the members and you always been since I met you you always had referred them as the athletes right and when they step into the doors we start again our training session like an athlete would. Um, and all those things, again, that means that we also have to feel our body, all right, as an athlete. So we cannot be eating Twinkies and expect to do better in the gym, all right. So we have that kind of pyramid, like the pyramid of CrossFit that has all different things. And I think we can dive into those in a later episode. But to close it off, like if you were to tell, this is your chance to tell your members, right?
My athletes.
What is your athletes? Thanks for correcting me. This is a chance to tell you athletes, right? Like, what is when you envision again when you envision the application of CrossFit when you walk into the gym, like what is kind of like the ideal scenario for you that you will see? You walk into a class, you're seeing the athletes working out, and what is it that you would like to see? Like, what inspires you when you walk in?
Man, that's a great question. Yesterday when we did our back squats, I posted something on Instagram. It was a Greg Glassman quote, and it was talking about mastering the basics, the fundamentals, and then once you think you've mastered them, start over again. Right? Go back to the beginning. This time with more. Um, oh man, this time with more. Ah, whatever.
Detail?
Do it hard. Do it harder. More detail. Sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's like adopting some kind of beginner's mindset. Even doesn't matter how long you've been doing CrossFit for. Going into it with the mindset of like I can always improve something, and
Mm.
going back to some more level one stuff, mechanics,
Oh,
consistency, then
yes.
intensity. Right. That I want to prioritize mechanics over everything, and we can call that movement quality. Right.
Yes.
I want to make sure that my movement quality is as good and clean as it can possibly be. Then I'm going to make sure that it's consistent. That no matter like whether it's my first set or my last set, whether it's my first rep in the workout or my last rep, that they all look the same. And then and only then do I apply maximal intensity to it. Right? Do I?
Wow.
I make the analogy sometimes about like learning how to drive a car. Right? Most of us started learning how to drive a car in a parking lot. Right? We learned to turn left slowly in the parking lot, and it takes a long time to develop the capacity to go out and become a NASCAR driver, where I can drive that car as fast as it possibly goes. Right? And I think way too often we we learn that there's this thing called a car, and then we just step on the gas pedal and we run it into walls. and
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, and I think that like again, it's protect your car, man. You've only got one of them, and it's
Oh,
got to
that's
last you the
awesome way to
next
put it. Yeah.
30, 40, 50 years. So yeah, it's learn to throttle the effort a little bit, and I promise you, you'll be better for it.
That's awesome. James, I think that's a
Yeah.
good stopping point there. I mean, we have a lot of thoughts coming up in the next few episodes. We're gonna talk more about those specific skills that we mentioned earlier. But if you're liking what we got going on, all right, please hit the subscribe button, all right. We're gonna be putting episodes. We're gonna make consecutive. We're not gonna promise any days right now, but again, you'll see the episodes coming through, and so you want to get notifications for the episode that is coming on. And we also on Spotify now, so you can like listen to us on Spotify. So again, hit subscribe. We'll go to Spotify. We may get to Apple Podcasts pretty soon as well. So more details of that. But James, thank you so much. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, man. This is
All
great.
right, man. All right,
Yeah.
see ya. Thank you.
See you next time.
See you guys. Thank you.